Coming up on tonight's UAP News Show, the Pentagon's response to the Jellyfish UAP.
Did the big ring break our current understandings of the universe?
A pink UFO caught on cam.
Are aliens keeping Representative Eric Burlison up at night?
Sean Kirkpatrick writes an op-ed throwing shade at the press and whistleblowers.
And more events to look forward to in 2024. Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we're back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO News Show. We've combed through this past week's most exciting, intriguing, and informative happenings, and I'm stoked to get started. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here, and welcome to the UAP Society's UAP UFO News Show, your ticket to an interstellar adventure like no other. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, get ready for a cosmic roller coaster ride through the latest updates from the far reaches of the galaxy.
You're in for a treat as we bring you the latest and greatest UAP and UFO news. So find your seats, strap in, and get ready to go on a galactic ride with us. Our first story covers the Pentagon's response to the Jellyfish UAP, released by weaponized Jeremy Corbell, that was featured on TMZ's three-part series called UFO Revolution. Journalist Ross Coulthart appeared on News Nation with Elizabeth Vargas and had this to say.
Well, no comment from the Pentagon in regards to the now infamous video of the so-called Jellyfish UFO. That video, released last week by journalist Jeremy Corbell, appears to show a UFO flying over an American base in Iraq. News Nation reached out to the Pentagon and asked if officials would confirm the video's authenticity. They told us today that, quote, "We do not comment on the authenticity of alleged DoD material that may have been leaked. The Department of Defense takes the potential unauthorized disclosure of national security information very seriously," end quote. Last week, we spoke with Jeremy Corbell about the significance of this new video and why he thinks the public needs to know about it.
This is the first time in history we are seeing a designated UAP, an unknown and unidentified, that it is moving into a restricted base. It is an incursion, in fact. So this is the first time you're seeing that.
In the past, the Defense Department has released several videos leaked previously by Corbell and later confirmed they are, in fact, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, the long term for UAP, or UFOs as we used to call them. News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthart joins us now. Hey, Ross, what do you make of the Pentagon's no comment answer?
G'day, Elizabeth. Look, I must say it's very revealing for what it doesn't say. It doesn't reveal a categorical denial. It's the last resort of governments and intelligence services when they don't want to answer a question. Essentially, it's a neither confirm nor deny. And what I would say, Elizabeth, is that in the past, the Pentagon has shown a willingness to use supposedly national security sensitive videos, such as, for example, the videos shot of their drones being attacked over Ukraine. And I think there's a very big issue here for the Pentagon now that Mr. Corbell is making the direct accusation that this was a designated UAP. That's not something that's denied by the Pentagon. I don't know why it couldn't be denied if it was untrue. And I think it really does put pressure on the Pentagon to start being more open and transparent with the public.
In the past, how long has it taken the Pentagon to confirm Jeremy Corbell's videos once he's released them? They seem to be annoyed that it was leaked. They talked about, we take this very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, there's an implicit acknowledgement there that they are annoyed that it was leaked, because they make reference in a specific paragraph to how dimly they view the leaking of material. But the simple fact is it normally takes about 3 or 4 weeks, I think, for them to process a response like this. But I think it's more telling, Elizabeth, that what lies behind this is we are going to see more leaks. People are getting frustrated from within the national security establishment. They think the Pentagon is flat out lying about what it knows about NHI. And they're telling me, they're telling Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and other journalists that it's time that the Pentagon came clean with the American public. And I think that this continued attempt to try and evade responsibility for videos that, frankly, almost certainly are Pentagon videos isn't going to help them in the long run. It's not good for American democracy for this continued denial.
Yeah, I'm not sure who else has a camera like that recording on a base, an American military base in Iraq, except the military.
In addition to that, we have an exclusive response from former UK Ministry of Defense UFO investigator Nick Pope from a recent interview he did with us for the UAP Society. Here's the clip of that now.
I should add a little postscript to the Jeremy Corbell Jellyfish UAP story. couple of days ago, I mean, when this story first came out, I, along with a number of other people, reached out to the Pentagon and asked for a comment on
Okay.
this. And
What'd they say?
they told me at the time, they said, we're looking into your question. I chased up a few days ago. Okay, here we are.
Sure.
It's in two parts. The first part is a standard part that I've heard before.
Okay.
And the second part is new, and I'll come on to that because it's more interesting.
Okay.
First part is just a basic glorified no comment. And it says, we do not comment on the authenticity of alleged DoD material that may have been leaked. DoD takes public interest in unidentified anomalous phenomena seriously and is committed to openness and accountability to the American people. This commitment must be balanced with the department's obligation to protect sensitive information, sources, and methods. To that end, Arrow will provide updates to the public via its website as it resolves UAP cases, including sharing the analytic approach and method used for each case, as well as imagery when approved for public release. So now I've heard that or versions of that before, and they hedge their bets, but the key phrase is, we do not comment on the authenticity of alleged DoD material that may have been leaked.
It's very passive vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people can read between the lines. The second part, I have not seen anything quite as strongly worded as this in relation to DoD and Arrow and UAP before.
Okay.
And it's, well, let me read it.
Yeah, I'm like on the edge of my seat here.
Yeah, I'm like, what to
let's
know.
hear it.
It's basically a severe telling off.
Okay.
Okay.
Not to me. But
all right. I'm like, jeez.
the Department of Defense takes the potential unauthorized disclosure of national security information very seriously. DoD organizations, including Arrow, regularly emphasize to their workforces the importance of protecting national security information in accordance with information security laws, regulations, and processes. Now, the important phrase there is Arrow regularly emphasizing this to their own workforce. Now, reading between the lines, what I take from that
Is what?
and I've worked on the inside, so I can read the tea leaves when it comes to it.
I love that you use that phrase.
Despite them in the first part of that response using the word alleged,
Okay.
I think we can take it to the bank that this was official DoD footage. I mean, self-evidently, it was taken from a tethered drone in the base. So, and at least one Marine witness has come out, has spoken to, I think, both Stephen Greenstreet at the New York Post, and subsequently, I think, to Jeremy Corbell as well.
Yeah.
So, so we know it's genuine footage. What we also know from the second part of that statement is that the DoD thinks its own people, or some of its own people, maybe even people working for Arrow, or who have a dotted line relationship with Arrow, have been leaking. And there is, sometimes these statements are written in a very neutral way. That statement was written by someone genuinely pretty angry at the fact that somebody in DoD is leaking this.
See,
Wow.
I love that you literally work for the government. So like, the lingo, the language, you could read between the lines, like you said. So thank you for that.
Yeah, your insights are very helpful.
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that. And then thank you for your interpretation of it.
Yeah. I mean, in one sense, it's not that remarkable of a statement, but it's around the edges of it and in the tone of it that I think you can discern the interesting part of it.
Sure.
We hope you enjoyed that clip, and tune in when we post the rest of that interview here on this channel in the near future.
I was so excited to talk to him, man. I was like super stoked.
Yeah, it's a great interview. We had a lot of fun doing it. Thank you, Nick Pope, again.
Yep.
For coming on and talking with us, and we hope everybody enjoys that conversation that we had with him. So be looking out for it because it's coming up.
And I like that he said you could take it to the bank. Like, he's got no doubt in his mind that this was an official video, that this came from the military, and, you know, it doesn't seem like he's questioning this at all, right?
Well, I mean, the object is still unknown. We have to keep an open mind, right? Because it
course.
could still just end up being something mundane. It could just still end up being a balloon. But
the footage came from military.
The footage is, I believe the footage is genuine. We need more data on it. I still want to see the extended video clip that they were talking about.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that water scene.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be amazing if they ever release that footage. But for now, I'm going to keep an open mind about it. You know, there's a lot of videos being put out there, and we have to remember that this could just be another psyop from the CIA or somebody else, you know, putting something out there that looks amazing, and then it ends up not being amazing to discredit, you know, the whole community or movement. So we just have to keep an open mind. We need more data on it.
Okay.
It's definitely very interesting, but I really would like to see more data on this object.
Same. And if that water footage does come out, best believe we will feature it here for you. So stay tuned.
Exactly. And then a recent discovery of a mega structure of galaxies scientists are calling the Big Ring may have just broke our current understanding of the universe. What do we mean by that? Let's take a look.
Okay.
Did you hear about the discovery of a mega structure of galaxies dubbed the Big Ring, which cannot be explained by our best model of the universe? Look, the fundamental idea that underpins that model is that the universe is both isotropic, i.e. it looks the same in all directions, and homogeneous, meaning that matter is roughly evenly distributed. Now, obviously on small scales, that's not the case because galaxies are very clumpy, but on large scales, things start to even out, and there should be no more structures larger than about 1.2 billion light years across. The Big Ring, though, has a diameter of 1.3 billion light years across, which is weird, and it's not the only one. Its discovery added to a growing list of large structures that seem to break our best model. This is a long-standing problem, one that we still haven't got any definitive answers for.
And to expand on that idea even more, let's watch a clip from UAP Society's Captain Chris Lato's live stream now.
Shaped structure in space, which is so big, it challenges our understanding of the universe. Experts at the University of Central Lancashire say it's 1.3 billion light years in diameter and appears to be roughly 15 times the size of the moon as seen from Earth. Structures that big shouldn't exist, according to one of the guiding principles of astronomy. Well, I'm delighted to say let's speak to Alexia Lopez, the PhD student at the University of Central Lancashire, who identified what is being called the Big Ring. My brain is clearly smaller than yours, so you better just explain in simple terms what you've actually discovered.
So I've discovered a really massive structure in the universe. So these are the biggest things in our universe. So it's made up of galaxies and galaxy clusters, and it creates this really big ring shape.
And how did you find that? Because it's pretty obvious, nobody else has stumbled across this. So how did you actually do it?
Yeah, so I was using a relatively unique tool to find this large scale structure. So the method uses these really bright sources of light known as quasars. And then when we measure the light from these quasars, it can tell us about things that are in between the quasar and us. So when I measured, I use all these quasar spectra. And so it tells us about all these intervening systems. So it tells us about where these galaxies are. So you can imagine it's kind of like looking at bright spotlights in a dark room. So the spotlights are highlighting to us where all these galaxies and galaxy clusters are. So without the bright spotlights, without the quasars, we would usually not be able to see these galaxies and galaxy clusters.
Okay, so yeah, basically she just looked. She looked, and it was like looking at spotlights in the dark.
Seek and you shall
find.
find.
A good reference for us, a good analogy for our humanity. But the reason they're surprised by this giant structure, we're going to continue to find giant structures that don't make sense, right? Because if it's 1.3 billion light years in diameter, that means it could not have formed, right? It's too big to have formed with all of the current understanding that we have about how all these things form. Like none of it makes sense in any of our models, right? This should not exist. Is what is our mainstream understanding of the greater cosmos is that it's all the same, right? It's all uniform. And that's the exact same thing. That's the exact same thing they thought when they were looking down into the microscopic world. You remember, the assumption was uniformity. When I look down into a microscope, all I'm expecting to see is like maybe the structure of the wood, right, in little cells. You're not expecting to see order where you have actually these other little organisms running around. That was the big thing, right? It wasn't uniform. The structure was not uniform at the smaller levels. Because why? Because of microscopic life. That's what we found. So what I'm saying, and what I've been saying for the last 2 years now, is that this is microscopic life. What we're looking up now is we're going to find these larger structures that, I know it sounds insane, but microscopic life, I'm sure, sounded insane to everyone a few hundred years ago. And look what happens, right?
Yep.
We do have microscopic life. And it is crazy. And it is insane, right? That we have microscopic life. Okay. All I'm saying is, don't stop at us. We're definitely not the smartest and highly evolved thing in this universe. I promise you, we are not. So if you don't stop at us, then you keep going, chances are these large structures, and we're just going to continue to find larger and larger structures. And I would just love it one day if anyone even considers that maybe this could be life, like any of this thing could actually be some form of life.
So that's how you did it. Just again, in simple terms, explain why it challenges what we thought we knew.
Well, in order to make the mathematics simple to model our universe, we make some assumptions. And one of those assumptions is that on large scales, we should see that the universe and the matter distribution in the universe looks smooth everywhere. So this essentially puts this limit on how big we should find structures existing. So when we find these large scale structures, these huge large scale structures like the Big Ring or the Giant Arc, these are so big that we're now not seeing this statistical homogeneity. We're not seeing this smoothness in the universe. So it does challenge this cosmological principle. It challenges our founding assumptions on what the standard model is built on.
So if those absolutely basics that we thought we knew aren't necessarily what is actually the truth, what sort of questions then get thrown up?
Well, I mean, this is the biggest question. What do we do now? I mean, really, we need to start thinking about if we should be using alternative models of cosmology. So these are proposed by lots of different people, including a Nobel Prize winner, Roger Penrose. So he has his alternative theory of cosmology, which actually you would detect circular features in the sky, in the CMB sky. And so maybe it means we need to start really taking these alternative theories in cosmology seriously, and also seriously be questioning whether our standard model can hold if the basic assumptions are proving to be challenged.
Yes, thank you. Oh my God. Like, is that rocket science? Is that some unreasonable request to our scientists? I mean, you heard it there. She's like, maybe they should look at some other alternate theories. Since our current theories have been wrong for 40 years.
Right.
Still haven't found dark matter. Still haven't found dark energy. They're out there just like looking in the dark. They want a bigger collider. They want a bigger, large hadron collider. And if you go back and look at the Higgs boson, this amazing discovery, right, where you had all these, nerds giving themselves millions of dollars and all these awards, and man, you really did it. Nobel Prize. You've broken the bank. What's come of that? The Higgs boson. What's the percentage? They can't even prove that that's actually, wasn't that the point? The point was to find the Higgs boson, and that would prove that the Higgs boson is where this touches into that. And so our whole universe can then be described. No, that's not what happened, right? And yet they want a bigger collider. If they get a bigger collider, they'll figure it out. There's even recent arguments that black holes actually don't exist, right? That there aren't black holes. It's not a black hole, which you're actually looking at. It's something else. Not the way we think of it, where it goes into this event horizon and it can never come out, right? The matter can never be accessed. What they're saying now is actually that's not the case. That's just a math singularity. So now black holes could actually not even exist. It is something else, right? And you have to remember, guys, is we're on our planet, which we assume we can see everything really well, but we can't. Like the JWST, I was watching a show the other day. Even with the James Webb Space Telescope, right? If you pointed it at the moon, you could not see where our astronaut, you could not make out the pixels, could not make out where the spacecraft are on the moon. So we just can't see out in the cosmos that well, right? And we have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Giving all these great, deep, toned discussions about event horizon. When you're on the outside of the black hole, what happens? You'll be stretched. Okay, this is all made up BS, okay? This is not legitimate. Like she mentioned, we need to go back to the assumptions. What are the assumptions of all of our science? And that assumption where you look up, that's really pretty important as you're an astronomer, and it's all uniform, not correct, right? And yet, I bet that's what they're teaching.
So, you know what they say about assumptions, right? You know what they say about assumptions, right, guys? I'm just gonna leave it at that. So yeah, I mean, if our current understanding of the universe doesn't fit within the framework of this, that means our current understanding is not accurate.
Right. We need a new model, or we need to amend our existing theories.
Right.
I really like Chris's theory that he says that, you know, we are the microscopic life, so to speak, and what we're when we look out into the cosmos, what we're looking at is whatever that larger structure life is. You know, it goes back to his scalar theory. You know, I think, you know, we're definitely living in a fractalized universe, and as above,
so below.
So below, right?
Keep the phrase going.
As within, so without.
As the soul, so the universe.
Yeah. If you guys ever see us in any of the live chats around YouTube, you will know exactly why that's funny and relevant. Yeah. But no, I think Chris is really onto something with that theory.
Yep.
If you guys have not heard about it, definitely go check it out. Chris has you know, multiple videos on that theory, and he's even written a paper on it. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely look it up. We'll try to include links for you.
Yep.
Also, if you guys are not aware of Dr. Becky, she has a really awesome YouTube channel, and she puts out great content, and I highly recommend you guys go and check her out.
Definitely.
Yeah. I watch her all the time. And up next, a flight attendant caught what the New York Post is calling a hot pink UFO on video. Let's check that out now.
Pay attention to the top of the screen. There it is. A New York Post article called Hot Pink UFO Whizzes Past Poland-Bound Airplane, Flight Attendant Video Shows says, I've been a flight attendant for a year and have never seen anything like this, Wizz Air worker Denisa Tanase, 36, told SWNS. The UK native didn't initially notice the odd sight when she filmed it on her flight from England to Poland. She snapped what she thought was just a video of the stunning view outside the window and put her phone away. I couldn't see anything with my bare eyes, Tanase recalled. But when I checked the video 20 minutes later, I spotted it and spoke to the pilot to ask if they knew anything. Everyone was confused. They hadn't seen anything while flying, and there had been no turbulence. It was a weird shape, like a circle flashing pink. At first, we thought maybe it was a reflection of our pink uniform, but on the video, you can see the motion. You can see where it's flying. Despite filming something almost inexplicable, Tanase said, she didn't feel scared. Instead, she felt excited and claims the video served as proof to her that extraterrestrial life exists. I was just happy to get something on film. I thought, how is this possible? The mom of two said. I've seen stuff before on the internet and thought, this could be Photoshop, but I had it on video myself. Now I definitely believe more than before, she continued. My family and friends think this is definitely aliens. My husband said, you're my wife. I believe you. And I personally almost didn't even cover this story, but the fact that she took the video just to catch the view outside the window, and then 20 minutes later when she looked at the video, that's when she saw it, I was like, oh, snap, hold on a minute. Because there's a lot of cases where people say that they don't see anything with their own two eyes, but then when they go back and look at pictures and videos and stuff that they took, it's like all of a sudden this object shows up in the film or on the picture.
Yeah, you know, that's also part of the phenomena is people not seeing something, but then being able to detect it with some kind of sensor system or a camera. You know, that's one of the aspects of it that I would really like to look into further.
And the pilots didn't see it either. Nobody on the plane saw it. I mean, I don't even think they would have seen it at all had she not taken that video. So you guys make up your mind. Was it real? Was it not? Was it a reflection? Was it a UFO? Was it Barbie flying around on a broomstick? Let us know.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think.
Fresh out the skiff, Representative Eric Burlison of the House Oversight Committee made an appearance on That UFO podcast and gave some insight as to how things went and what new revelations he has made since then. Let's take a look.
Joining me for this special update representing the 7th District of Missouri, I have Congressman Eric Burlison. Eric, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be on.
So an article on MissouriNet, which is dated the 21st of August last year with Marshall Griffin, you said, and I'll quote, in my opinion, it's either angels or man-made. I think the most likely explanation is that it's man-made. And I wonder, given your whirlwind exposure to the UAP topic in that time, does that statement still reflect your current opinion?
Yeah, probably even more so. So, and let me clarify, because that sounds confusing to some people. So here's what I mean by that. When I read Grush's report that's public, that anyone can read, in the report, he described that one of the theories is that what we're encountering are beings that are extra-dimensional or interdimensional, meaning that
there's that phrase again.
He used the holographic theory that as though we're living on a two-dimensional surface being encountered by a three-dimensional object. Well, in this case, we're living in a three-dimensional environment, and we could be being encountered by something that's of a higher dimension. And when it does, it's not necessarily traveling. I mean, it could travel, but I think if something exists in a different dimension, then space-time difference, the distance may become irrelevant at that point. What I think is the least likely probability is that we are being visited by some alien race from another planet that is light years away. I know in the hearing I flubbed and I said, thousands of light years. What I meant to say is thousands, millions, trillions, billions of miles away, and light years away from us, right? Whatever you want to call it, it's a long way. It's a really long way to anywhere, and it's a long way in any direction. So the probability of some other alien race evolving to that level, and then deciding to, of all places, come this direction, and then, as I said in the hearing, they've got the technology to get here and invest all that time to get here and energy to get here, and then they crash. I don't buy it. I do think that the extra dimensional theory is intriguing to me, but again, I'd have to see more. I'd have to see something to make me believe that it's true. I do think, though, that it's more likely, at least unless someone can give me evidence otherwise, I think it's more likely that it would be something extra dimensional than it would be within this dimension. And so what I'll say is that when you start talking about things in that nature, that they're extra dimensional, well, in a lot of different scriptures, including the Bible and others, that's really the way that you describe messengers of God, or angels. And so they may not fit exactly the biblical narrative, but whenever I use the term angels, to me it's synonymous with an extra dimensional being. But the most likely, in my opinion, the most likely thing is that what we're seeing. Again, I do not discount. I think that what's being recorded visually, what's being seen, and what we're hearing testimony from pilots, I think they're actually seeing things, and I think that evidence. There's plenty of evidence of these objects that we don't know what they are. But I think the most likely conclusion may not be as what everyone wants to hear, but it may very well be that it's technology that's being developed and researched, or including potentially new propulsion technology. Here's what I say whenever I talk about that topic, is that we discovered the Higgs boson particle, 10 years ago? It was discovered. We discovered the Higgs field, which is really the field for gravity, and the particle, which is a wave function within that field. And if you think about it, not long after they discovered nuclear fission, did they invent the nuclear bomb. Okay, that's where scientists took theory and converted it into function. And I just can't imagine that we've not been able to capitalize, or that our private sector industry or the scientific community has not been able to determine ways in which to manipulate the Higgs field.
And in addition to that, he also made some very telling comments on X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's look at the tweet. On January 7th, he says, "Anyone else up late tonight thinking about UAPs and how the federal government has been hiding the truth from Americans for decades? Then he made a follow-up tweet that reads, "Still up late thinking about UAPs, by the way."
So clearly he's got aliens on the brain. And I wonder what went down in that skiff that's got him up late at night pondering all this. Because he started off, he said earlier in that video with that UFO podcast that he started off very nuts and bolts. But now it's like he seems to have taken a different mental direction, right?
Yeah.
And he seems to be seriously considering this. I mean, it's keeping him up at night. That's telling right in itself.
Yeah, it keeps a lot of people up at night, I think, people that take this issue seriously. For me, it's very telling with regards to this NHI interdimensionality aspect of the phenomena.
Shout out to Carl Sagan and his whole Tesseract presentation. If you haven't seen that yet, look it up on YouTube. It's definitely worth the watch. He explains how, we're in a 3D reality, and if there's something that's in a fourth or fifth dimension, that we may just possibly seeing the shadow of them, not the full, complete manifestation. Just like if you take an object and project its shadow onto the wall, it's a literal 3D object, but you can see the shadow as 2D. So he's projecting that out to say maybe these are fourth or fifth dimensional things, and we're only seeing like the shadow of it.
Right.
So I'm curious to see if Eric Burlison makes more comments like this, and if any of the other HOC members also seem to be troubled by this, because the more that they think about it, the more they're going to be moved to act on it, and that's what we need.
And I'll be honest, for me, it's not that far of a stretch to think that there could have been a civilization, or could be a civilization out there that has progressed to the point of interstellar travel.
Sure.
And has come here. There's a lot of people making the argument that if they have the ability to come here, why do they crash?
Right.
And to me, that's, that seems very possible. Just because you're able to go long distances, that doesn't preclude you from crashing, quote unquote, right? Or what if our government actually has some kind of weapon system
to take these things
that
down
can take
on
them
purpose,
down?
right?
Right. I mean, we just don't know.
Right. And I mean, I'm thinking of two different things. The first thing I'm thinking of is when we covered Neil deGrasse Tyson a couple of shows ago, where he said that if aliens do exist, I don't want to speak to the dumb ones that crash land. I want to speak to the intelligent ones. So that was the first thing I thought of. Right. And then the second thing I'm thinking of is there's been a lot of theories circulating online that maybe these are like gifts from these higher entities. They can't show themselves, so to speak, but if they just gift us these things that we can then reverse engineer and make progress as a species, maybe they're just doing us a solid and dropping some stuff off and saying, here guys, take a look at this, and then just watching us progress.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things that seem plausible to me. There's things that seem more plausible than others, right? Just like anything else. But at the end of the day, we still don't know. We still don't have that proof like we want.
Yeah.
We got to keep pushing. We got to keep pushing for disclosure.
For sure.
We got to keep pushing to get more information, more data, more decentralized data. And that's going to be a big aspect of the next, 10 years for me, is trying to get our own data.
Right on.
On January 19th of this year, former director of AARO, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, published an op-ed article called "Here's What I Learned as the U.S. Government's UFO Hunter," and throws serious shade at the press, current whistleblowers, and the entire UFO community.
Yeah. Ugh. All right. So we're going to read some of this to you guys. Just listen up.
In it, he says, Carl Sagan popularized the maxim that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This advice should not be optional for policymakers. In today's world of misinformation, conspiracy-driven decision-making, and sensationalist-dominated governance, our capacity for rationale, evidence-based critical thinking is eroding, with deleterious consequences for our ability to effectively deal with multiplying challenges of ever-increasing complexity. He goes on to basically say that he did all he could at AARO, and concludes with this.
Some members of Congress prefer to opine about aliens to the press rather than get an evidence-based briefing on the matter. Members have a responsibility to exhibit critical thinking skills instead of seeking the spotlight. As of the time of my departure, none, let me repeat, none of the conspiracy-minded whistleblowers in the public eye had elected to come to Arrow to provide their evidence and statement for the record despite numerous invitations. Anyone that would rather be sensationalist in the public eye than bring their evidence to the one organization established in law with all of the legal process and security framework established to protect them, their privacy, and the information, and to investigate and report out findings is suspect. I can assure you, as its former director, that Arrow is unwaveringly committed to harnessing science and technology to bring unprecedented clarity to these fascinating, important, and stubborn mysteries, and to do so with maximum transparency. Its talented staff and team of supporting scientists are at this very moment striving in collaboration with the armed forces, intelligence community, government agencies, national laboratories, scientific community, academic community, and soon the general public to collect and analyze hard, measurable data, i.e., extraordinary evidence, in this heretofore eyewitness-rich but data-poor field. The Arrow team will go wherever the data takes it without fail and will not be swayed by any attempts to influence its findings otherwise. Science cannot be left on the side of the road in this mad dash to uncover some great conspiracy. Carl Sagan would expect no less, and neither should the American people. So, needless to say, this article pissed off a lot of people, and in my opinion alone, lends credence to the type of person that Kirkpatrick really is. To read this article in its entirety, please check out the link in the video description box below, and if you would like to send dear old Kirkpatrick Pants an email, check out this screenshot from our previous video called Aliens in Miami, WTF, a UFO Revolution and More, Weekly UAP News, January 8th, 2024, for his current email address, just in case you want to shoot him something. That's all.
So I did see on X recently that it's come to light that Arrow, in fact, did not have a high enough clearance to receive Dave Gruss's testimony.
And see, that's something that a lot of people online were saying in response to this article. They're like, yo, either he is lying straight through his teeth and pretending like he doesn't know what he knows, or he's just like legitimately blissfully unaware and from his perspective speaking the truth that, you know, this is all a bunch of hogwash. Like, I'm not really sure, but I mean, if I listen to my gut, which I tend to like to do, I think he's full of shit. You know me and my opinion on Kirkpatrick Pants, people. If you can't read between the lines by now, I don't know. Not a fan.
That's very interesting, though. If they, in fact, do not have a high enough clearance to receive, you know, testimony from Dave Grush, you know, on what he has found out, well, then, you know, that, I mean, there's a classification issue. You know, I feel like
it goes to show how compartmentalized
issue.
Right. It goes to show how compartmentalized everything really is, because maybe he just didn't have this information, or maybe he just didn't look hard enough because he didn't want to know. That's another possibility too.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny that, you know, he didn't really do a whole lot while he was at Arrow. He retired and now he's working at that other facility. And then he throws out this op-ed, just throwing shade all over the press, all over the whistleblowers, and all over the community, saying that we're just a bunch of dummies that believes whatever. And, you know, there's no hard evidence when there's a pile of it he could fucking look through. He just like doesn't want to pay attention. I don't know. This guy frustrates me.
Yeah. And last but not least, more upcoming UFO related events.
Up first, we have the Consciousness Life Expo that's happening February 9th through the 12th of 2024. It's happening at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles. Speakers include, but are not limited to, Daryl Anka Bashar, Elizabeth April, Linda Moulton Howe, Nick Pope, Caroline Corey, Daniel Sheehan, Whitley Strieber, Alan Steinfeld, Stephen Bassett, George Norrie, and more. And if you'd like to check this event out or buy tickets, please go to www.consciouslifeexpo.com.
When we spoke, Nick Pope seemed really excited about this event.
He did.
And encourages everyone to go to the website to get the the details and says that if you go to this event, make sure to say hi and get a selfie with him.
Yeah, I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
And don't forget to stay tuned so you can see him say that for yourself.
Yes.
All right. After that, we have the Sedona Ascension Retreat called Accelerating Consciousness. It's happening March 8th through the 10th, and the location is in Sedona, Arizona. Speakers include, but are not limited to, Linda Moulton Howe, Daryl Anka-Bashar, Alan Steinfeld, Susan Geisman, Anita Morjani, Matt Kahn, and more. And to check that event out, go to www.sedonaascensionretreats.com.
And then there's going to be a UFO festival. The dates are still to be announced, but it usually happens in the summer. And the location is going to be in Roswell, New Mexico. Past events included a parade, both a human and pet alien-themed costume contest, and more. The website is ufofestival.com.
Roswell.
Sounds like it would be an interesting experience.
There's lots of cool conferences happening, lots of cool expos, lots of cool movies and films coming out. So 2024 seems to be a banger already. I'm just excited for all of this. And that concludes this week's UAP Society's UAP and UFO news show. Thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out with us. And while you're here, do us a favor, click that like, click that subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help spread the good word. Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity. All right. Much love, peace, and namaste.
The evolution of life on Earth seems to have been profoundly altered by collisions with such bodies. Asteroids.